Cheap Shot Nation. This is the first ever Halloween special that Cheap Shot Entertainment has ever done. It's also the first year that we've been in production or on YouTube and things like that, so of course it's going to be the first ever, but it's going to be a wrestling themed Halloween special. We've got Xena with us, the new and improved Xena, the pumpkin, and yeah, we're going to look at Halloween Havoc 1989. Way before the set dressing and all of that kind of stuff. It was Deep South, it was NWA, WCW, rather than just WCW. Before it broke away from the National Wrestling Alliance, you have people in there like Sting and Ric Flair and Terry Funk, and it's just really old school and quite entertaining for the most part, but there are some stinkers in there as well, and it's a lot different. The style of wrestling is a lot different from, well, 30 years ago as it is now, near. Next year it will be 30 years since the original Halloween Havoc, but the main event in this show is a Thunderdome match. Couldn't get any more 80s than that. Obviously referencing Mad Max, with a barbed wire, electrified cage, Hell in a Cell kind of thing. It was just WCW all over, really. But yeah, pretty good show. But we're going to take you through all of the matches and give you a roundup of everything that happened in the show. It's also available on the WWE Network if you fancy watching it. $9.99 for the month, and your first month is free. Anyway, let's get on to Halloween Havoc 1989. Okay, so the pay-per-view starts, Halloween Havoc starts with Bob Gordy and Jim Ross at the announce table talking about the Thunderdome match and explaining what that will be. Basically, the main event of the evening is a sort of Hell in a Cell kind of barbed wire thing with electricity to stop people climbing out. Also of note, the managers would go in the cage as well with a towel, and they'd have to throw in the towel to give the other team the win. So it's kind of a submission cage type thing, and it's just, well, it's WCW all over, like I mentioned before. So you have the announcers, like Jim Ross is just absolutely fantastic during this show. His play-by-play colour commentary is fantastic, as it would go on to be, and he's an absolute legend in the wrestling world. But your first match after these two have finished talking about the main event is Captain Mike Rotunda, go on to be Owen R. Shyster in later life, versus the Z-Man. Obviously I've heard of Mike Rotunda, I've not really heard of the Z-Man, so I'm going into this unknowing what he can do. He comes in with quite a lot of fanfare for being a college football player and all that kind of stuff, as most wrestlers did during this sort of era of wrestling, especially WCW, going into the South, and everyone seems to have played American football or something, some kind of sport at college or high school, coming into WCW or WWF as it was then. But yeah, the match starts by Rotunda using wrestling holds, a lot of wrestling holds in this one. Z-Man gets back on top and Rotunda goes to the outside, breaking up any momentum that Z-Man had at this point. Rotunda goes back in the ring, catches Z-Man coming back in, and gets the run on Z-Man. Rotunda is now in control of the match. There's some arm drags, some drop kicks by Z-Man as well. Looks like Rotunda's hiding something in his knee pad, perhaps a foreign object, which he's going to use later. Who knows at this point. Rotunda gets in a cheap shot, and he is now back on top. Z-Man on the outside then goes back in for the lockup with Rotunda. Lots of arm holds again, lots of rest holds. Like I say, it's a very different style to what you're used to today, so go into it with an open mind if you're planning on watching this. Rotunda reverses the short head scissors. Reverses the move by Z-Man into a short head scissors using the ropes for leverage. He likes to be a ring general, Mike Rotunda, in this match, and so the colour commentators say that's his style. Likes to know where he is at all times, make sure he can reach the ropes for some extra leverage, you know what I mean? And Rotunda throws Z-Man out of the ring again. Lots of outside action in this match. So with Z-Man outside, Rotunda follows him and throws him onto the concrete. There's no padding out there. It looked nasty spill onto the outside, and Rotunda is very much in control. Continues the punishment back inside the ground, inside the ring rather, and really playing to the crowd at this point. The crowd is on his back, and he wastes a little bit of time going for the pin, and Z-Man kicks out. Goes for the abdominal stretch, a move that he's known for at this point. Again, very close to the ropes, gets those ropes and gets some extra leverage. Rotunda misses a drop kick. Z-Man gets back on top and wins after reversing a springboard crossbody from Captain Mike Rotunda, and gets the win. Reverses the roll up, and 1, 2, 3. Z-Man is your winner. Very good start to this pay-per-view. Really enjoyed the match. There was a lot of rest holds, but not as many as some of the matches we're going to move on to after this one. Good match to start. I'm impressed so far. Like I say, if you plan on watching it, go into it with an open mind. It is very different to the style of today. There's a few high-flying moves, but a lot of rest holds as well. So you have to appreciate where wrestling has come from, where it has been, and this is at the beginning of the height of modern wrestling. So yeah, I'd suggest checking it out. Halloween Havoc 1989. The next part of the pay-per-view features Bruno Sammartino, the living legend in professional wrestling, who is going to be the guest referee in the Thunderdome match. He says that he's the only one that can keep order in that kind of match. No one's ever seen one of these matches before, so I don't know where they get that from. But he's talking about being the Thunderdome referee and how excited he is and all that kind of stuff. But we then go straight on to the next match, We then go on to the next match, which is a 6-man tag match featuring Dr. Death, Steve Williams at his height, and the Midnight Express featuring Beautiful Bobby and Sweet Stan. You can tell we're getting closer to the 90s at this point. And they're going against the Samoan SWAT team in Fatu and Samu, who would later become the Head Shrinkers in WWE. Stereotypes. And the Samoan Savage, because everyone who comes from an island is an absolute savage. So yeah, we're at the height of stereotypes in wrestling and characters. But again, another really good match. Say it was a 6-man tag, and it did break down a couple of times. It was pretty easy to follow and told a really good story. So if you've not seen anything going into this, you'd know what's going off, basically, which is good. You know, wrestling is 80% telling of a story and 20% wrestling. It's the modern world of professional wrestling. It's not a sport, it's entertainment, and that's what it is. So the match starts with the Samoan Savage in the ring, along with Sweet Stan, who has been told several times, as we've been told during the colour commentary, that he used to teach karate in back in the 70s, which is cool, man. So he's got a martial arts background before having a martial arts background was cool in wrestling. So the match breaks down quickly. It doesn't take very long. Beautiful Bobby gets the arm holds and they're traded with Samu, who misses an elbow after he gets back on top. So like I say, it broke down. eventually the referee got control again, and it came down to Beautiful Bobby and the Samoan Savage. So yeah, misses an elbow. Samu then goes for the chops. As he's in now, Dr. Death tags in. Fatu sells like Dolph Ziggler during the next section, with Dr. Death, Steve Williams, giving him a football tackle, as it would be called back then, and Fatu, who would later become Rikishi, doing his spinny thing when he falls to the floor, selling like Dolph Ziggler. That's what Fatu does, and he did it before Dolph Ziggler did. So maybe Dolph Ziggler sells like Rikishi. I don't know. Answers on a postcard or in the comment section down below. So the Doctor comes out on top after taking out all three of the opposition, all three Samoan Savages, the Islanders, or whatever you want to call them. And Samu in after Sweet Stan goes for a hip toss, which is then blocked by Fatu. The Doctor takes out Samu. Beautiful Bobby comes in, and Samu gets to the corner, and Samu telegraphs a back body drop at this point, which gives Beautiful Bobby an opening. So Fatu goes for another elbow on Beautiful Bobby. He moves out of the way and works on the arm of Fatu. Fatu drags Beautiful Bobby into his corner, gets the tag to the Samoan Savage, and throws Sweet Stan into the corner. The Samoans are on top at this point. Like I say, it's a bit here and there, but it was pretty easy to follow when you actually watch it. So my comments here go along with the videos. Samoans don't let up on the punishment. Beautiful Bobby goes back to the outside after being tossed unceremoniously through the ropes. There's a near fall after a sunset flip. Fatu is in isolation of Beautiful Bobby at this point, and he gets back in it with the knees, and I've put in my notes here that this could be the turning point of the match. Breaks down again with the managers getting involved, and on the apron the Samoan Savage pushes Sweet Stan into the ropes, knocking Jim Cornette off the ring apron, stunning Sweet Stan enough for the Samoan Savage to get the roll up and the pin for the win. Your winners are the Samoan Savage and the Samoan SWAT team in this match. Again, another really good match, told a decent story, and it's always cool to see Jim Cornette with his tennis racket out at ringside. So yeah, good start so far to Halloween Havoc 1989. And the third match of the pay-per-view featured the Cuban Assassin. There's a lot of assassins in WCW at this point in time. 1989 versus Wildfire Tommy Rich. Now, I'm not familiar with either of these two, so going into the match, not knowing very much leads me to have an open mind to this one. But yeah, so we're going to go through everything that went off. So the Assassin gets the jump on Wildfire and starts attacking him from behind just as the bell goes. Tommy gets back in it quickly, sending the Cuban Assassin to the outside. There's a springboard crossbody by the Cuban Assassin onto Tommy Wildfire, and Tommy quickly gets back into an arm hold. Lots of arm holds in this one, lots of rest holds, and it's a very slow, methodical pace. There's another sunset flip, an arm bar. The crowd is on Tommy Rich, and if you don't know anything about this match, you'd think that he would probably be the good guy in this one, the face, but the crowd is chanting that he sucks, basically. And it's like a time warp watching this pay-per-view, because there's some things that the 1989 crowd in Philadelphia, who very well known for knowing their wrestling very, very well, doing stuff that we find standard now. And it was quite surprising when I was watching this to hear those chants and things coming from the crowd in Philadelphia. Like I've put here, it's like a time machine going back. Anyway, the reaction to the face wrestler is a bit like the one to Roman Reigns before, obviously, his news from last Monday, which does suck, by the way. Get well soon, Roman, from everybody here at Cheap Shot Entertainment. Lots more rest holds and the Cuban 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lots of rest holds and the Cuban hits the high knee and sends Tommy Rich out of the ring. The Cuban is very on top. The Cuban assassin is on top. Tommy goes, the Cuban assassin rather goes up top. Tommy Rich knocks the rope. The Cuban assassin falls down. That brings the Cuban assassin to his knees. He misses a crossbody. Tommy hits the Luther's press. Of all the things, the thing that Austin used to do, the thing that Randy Orton does now, for the win. So basically, he jumped on him, and he got the win. 1, 2, 3, your winner. Via the Luther's press is Wildfire Tommy Rich. And it is at this point that I will say, I'm going to try and do some more classic pay-per-view reviews. And I will say this, I'm going to put a segment in based on this match, and I'm going to call it the Designated Piss Break match, because this one is that match. And if you're a fan of wrestling, or been a fan of wrestling for the last 10, 20 years, you'll know what I mean on this one. This match, the Cuban Assassin versus Wildfire Tommy Rich, is the Designated Piss Break match, and the graphic will appear just here. But we'll move on to the next match. Your next match, the fourth match of the pay-per-view Halloween Havoc 1989, was the Dynamic Dudes, with a couple of familiar faces, versus the Freebirds. Now the Dynamic Dudes are Johnny Ace, yes, John Laurinaitis. If you've been watching wrestling in the last 10 years, you'll know who I mean. And Shane Douglas. I've met him. He's a really cool guy. I went to an open evening with him. Really, really interesting guy. If you ever get a chance to see an open mic night with him and ask questions, then go and see it, because he is really, really cool. And the Fabulous Freebirds, P.S. Michael Hayes and Jimmy Garvin. And they are the NWA Tag Team champions, and the match is for the NWA Tag Team Championships. The Dynamic Dudes, also of note, have Jim Cornette in their corner at this point as well. So the match starts off in a stalemate, lots of jockeying for position, lots of rest holds again, lots of rest holds. Spinning neck breaker attempt looks a bit iffy on Hayes. Johnny Ace and Garvin then get in. There's a double team by the Dynamic Dudes, and like I say, you can tell you're getting towards the end of the 80s and the start of the early 90s by the words Dynamic and Dudes. Controlling the arms of the Fabulous Freebirds, and the double Dynamic Dudes again clear the ring of the Fabulous Freebirds. The Freebirds go outside to gather their thoughts and reconvene about their tactics in this one. So when the Freebirds get back in, there's a roll-up on Garvin, which Hayes breaks up with a straight punch to the jaw. And so when the Freebirds get back in, Johnny Ace rolls up Garvin and tries to get the pin it gets near fall after P.S. Michael Hayes clocks in with a straight punch to the jaw and breaks up the pin. The Freebirds are back on top with that one simple move, but they are now back on top. They then hit a backdrop on Johnny Ace, and the Freebirds are fully in control of the match for the next couple of minutes. Goes for the DDT, scouted, holds onto the rope. Michael Hayes doesn't hit the DDT on Johnny Ace. Johnny Ace then gets the tag to Shane Douglas. They then try for the wipeout, which is a double springboard backdrop, belly to back suplex kind of thing, but they're too close to the ropes when they get this. Tries this on Garvin. P.S. Michael Hayes is on the outside of the ring, grabs Johnny Ace's leg. He falls over. Garvin manages to spin round and get the pin on Shane Douglas for the win. Your tag team champions, still tag team champions, are the fabulous Freebirds. Again, another good match. Lots of wrestling ring psychology with the Freebirds. They were very much the crowd's favourite in this one. In fact, what I said about the last match with the crowd being on top of the faces in this pay-per-view is, it happens again with the Dynamic Dudes. And how can you boo Johnny Ace and Shane Douglas? They go into great length about Shane Douglas having a degree in education, so and all that kind of stuff. How can you be a teacher? Anyway, your winners and still NWA Tag Team Champions after this match are the fabulous Freebirds. So we go into the next segment, which is an interview with the Steiner brothers. Incidentally, Rick Steiner looks like, and he sounds like he's been on something, you know what I mean? But he's talking about what's happened previously with Woman and Doom, because it's not the Dungeon of Doom at this point, it's just Doom. And their manager is a lady called Woman. That's her character. We'll tell we're in the 1980s. Again, I keep saying that. We are in the 1980s. It's like a time machine going back in time. Nearly 30 years ago now. So the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott and Doom, which I think is Ron Simmons, and I'm not sure about the other guy, which I will check up on. Steiners get the jump on Doom. There's a lot of backstory with this one, with the Woman making Rick Steiner look a bit daft in previous weeks. So the Steiners are not very happy with Doom, so they get the jump on them. Not typical face tactics, but how can you not love the Steiner brothers? They're fantastic. And hit a quick double German suplex on Doom. One to one guy, one to the other guy, and Doom roll out of the ring as the crowd barks at Rick Steiner in their usual way. I'm just going to refer to Doom as Doom 1 and Doom 2 in this review. So keep up with me, because I had difficulty keeping up with them. So the match begins again after the breakdown with Doom 1 in the ring and Scott Steiner, who takes down Doom 1 and tags Rick Steiner into the ring. There's a double Steiner line at this point, which is basically a clothesline, but obviously it's a Steiner, and it rhymes as well, Steiner line. That's pretty cool. So the Steiners on top. Scott flies with a Steiner line, again a jumping Steiner line, and he's back to wearing down Doom 2 at this point. He's already tagged in, and Doom 2 then manages to get back into the match and gets back on top of Scott Steiner, and by distraction, should be said, from Woman. And that's how they get back on top in this match. There's more inverse suplexes from Scott Steiner. There's some more German suplexes from the Steiners, and Scott getting the beat down from Doom. Both members of Doom quick tags. They're beating down Scott Steiner, the proverbial lamb to the slaughter in this match, as you usually get in tag team matches. goes to the outside, Doom to the outside, Scott Steiner to the outside. Rick tries to come and help his brother, but they roll Scott Steiner back in, and the referee sends Rick Steiner back to his corner. They couldn't break up the beatdown that his brother's having at this point. There's a near fall by Doom after a double elbow, and Doom are absolutely dominant in this match so far. Sunset flip followed by a spinning neck breaker and on Doom, and Doom still on top at this point. Scott is being absolutely isolated, like I've already said. There is a power slam from Doom 1, which I think is Ron Simmons. There's a telegraphed back body drop, which then Scott Steiner managed to break up with a quick kick to the chest, and at this point he does manage to get the tag to Rick. Rick comes in like a house on fire, clears the ring. There's a Frankensteiner, which is a jump up Hurricane Runner done by Scott Steiner, which is bigger of the two, and it's just phenomenal how he manages to do that for one, because he's so big. He's just so athletic, and it creates some separation. And there's a belly to belly by Scott Steiner on Doom 2, but Woman then gets the interference again. He goes for the belly to belly after Woman had put something in Doom 1's mask. Just as he's about to get the belly to belly suplex, Doom 1 headbutts Rick Steiner, knocks him out, gets the pin, and your winners are Doom with Woman over the Steiner brothers. And yeah, another decent match. Again, told a really good story. If you wasn't watching it before and keeping an eye on the storylines, then this match would have gone a long way to explaining that. There's obviously a lot of animosity between these two teams at this point with things going on. Again, another decent match, really. We're on what, match 5? And there's only been one really bad match. So yeah, decent pay-per-view so far, but there's still time. There's still time. And so the next match features Flying Brian Pillman and Lex Luthor, playing Superman here. And so your next match is for the United States Championship. It features Flying Brian Pillman, the challenger, and the champion Lex Luger, who has held the championship 3 times in 3 years, and that's been made a big deal of. This is back when the secondary championships were very hotly contested and not left out of pay-per-views, WWE. Anyway, the pace is quick in this one, obviously favours Flying Brian, and Pillman is on top for quite a lot of the match. With Lex Luger not really knowing how to handle Pillman. There's been a lot of animosity between these two. You can tell that from the match. Lots of striking, lots of rest holds again, but a lot quicker paced than the previous matches that we have seen on this pay-per-view. So Luger, after being dominated for the first couple of minutes, skips to the outside, manages to get the jump on Pillman as he's coming back in the ring, and then the punishment continues from Lex Luger, gets him coming back in. This is short-lived as Pillman comes back into the match and hits a springboard arm drag, controlling the arm as he goes across. Luger shows his power at this point by throwing Pillman around the ring, and gets in control after a flurry, followed by a drop kick from Brian Pillman. At this point, Pillman goes back to the rest holds, trying to wear down the much stronger Lex Luger, and Pillman tries the sunset flip. Luger misses a clothesline, and Pillman hits another drop kick. Absolute beauties of drop kicks that Brian Pillman was able to bust out at this point in his career. There's an inverted atomic drop from Lex Luger, gets him back into the match, sets up for a superplex, At this point, there's a sunset flip and a springboard clothesline from Brian Pillman after he blocks the superplex attempt. Luger close to the ropes to break the pin, and he knows where he is. He's a ring general, that's why he's the champion. Pillman misses a missile dropkick, and this is where the match turns in favour of Lex Luger. Luger hits the hot shot. Brian Pillman is completely knocked out by this, and Luger gets the pin and retains the United States Championship. Okay match. I favoured the higher pace after seeing 4 or 5 matches that were lots of rest holds and things like that, as we've mentioned. But yeah, decent match. If I was going to give it a grade, I'd probably give it a very high C. And yeah, just it was sort of run of the mill. It was middle of the park. It had good parts, it had bad parts, like most of the matches on this pay-per-view. But yeah, your winner is Lex Luger, and continues as his reign as United States Champion in NWA WCW. And so the next match is a tag team match featuring the Skyscrapers, Dan Spivey and Sid Vicious. One's 6'9", one's 6'6". There's a reason they're called Skyscrapers. And they're going against the LOD, the Road Warriors, Legion of Doom, and they have Precious Paul Ellering with them as manager. And obviously Paul Ellering has been in WWE most recently as this year, in fact, with the Authors of Pain as their manager. And they're very much missing him, because I haven't seen the Authors of Pain for a very long time after they got moved up to Raw. And it's a damn shame, because they're really good. 2 big guys who can destroy other tag teams, and they've just been left out to dry because they've been brought up a little bit too early, in my opinion. But there you go, that's what it is. So there's an early stalemate in this one. Legion of Doom trying to use their power, but the power is being matched by the Skyscrapers. They cannot move them, they cannot knock them down, and LOD is obviously giving up some size to the Skyscrapers. There's a flying shoulder tackle, and LOD managed to get on top of the Skyscrapers after using that flying shoulder tackle. And it's clear that the flying shoulder tackle does work, as Animal hits one on Sid Vicious, whereas previously it was Hawk on Dan Spivey. There's a slow pace but hard hitting in this match as the Skyscrapers continue their dominance over LOD throughout this match. Hawk wins the test of strength, which he instigates, and pushes Sid Vicious back into the corner. Animal gets his tag. Vicious breaks. So Hawk tags Animal at this point, with Vicious backing Animal back into his own corner and tagging Spivey into the ring with Animal in his corner, and Vicious then gets the tag to Spivey, and Vicious is back in, and there's quick back and forth tags by both teams at this point. It's Vicious and Hawk back in. Vicious spins Hawk with a military press and a spin. Very powerful move, looked absolutely awesome from Sid Vicious, and shows his power to gain the advantage. Hawk on the outside after a cheap shot by Dan Spivey, stays on the outside, and there's no let up for Hawk on this one as the Skyscrapers continue the beatdown, getting advice from each other after they regroup in this match. So the Skyscrapers are very much on top at this point, and so the Skyscrapers are on top, very much on top at this point, and the match breaks down again with Hawk. When Hawk gets the tag, the referee disqualifies the Skyscrapers after Tilo gets the foreign object, a key, a heavy key as they mention, and attacks LOD. After the match, the attack continues. Hawk comes in and breaks down the attack, and the skyscrapers run away with their tails between their legs. Good to see Theodore Long in a pay-per-view this far back, nearly 30 years ago. He was in wrestling with dreadlocks and looked a bit like Stevie Wonder. So yeah, that was pretty cool. Always good to see the Road Warriors, Legion of Doom. Not a forgotten tag team by any means, but certainly one that's gone by the wayside in recent years after they split up, and obviously the untimely death of Hawk just before the year 2000, I think it was actually. It was it was quite a while ago now actually. And so like I say, it's always one of my favourite tag teams is the LOD, just for the hard-hitting nature of who they are, and the shoulder pads and all that kind of stuff is very, very cool. But the match is thrown out, the skyscrapers are disqualified, so therefore your winners are the Legion of Doom, with Paul Ellering as the referee raises their hands in victory, and I'm sure a cold victory at that, because they would have wanted a pin or a submission to get the win over the skyscrapers. And so the final match of the pay-per-view is the much documented Thunderdome cage match. Now in this match, Bruno Sammartino is your guest referee, and it is a tag team match with the managers on each side holding a white towel, which they have to throw in when their team wants to give up. And that's the only way the match can finish. A bit of a cluster of ideas. It's very WCW, and that would continue all the way through the 90s, and it just makes it rather entertaining and quite silly, really, a bit cartoony. But decent enough match. I was expecting a little bit more from the concept. I mean, very early version of Hell in a Cell, it was okay. Not sure about the idea of having a proper tag team match in here, though. I mean, at least do it as Tornado Rules or something. But yeah, a decent idea, just executed slightly wrong within WCW. So to win, like I say, the manager has to throw in the towel for their team, and it's just basically a dressed up Hell in a Cell with the cage having a sort of top on it so you can't climb out, and it's supposed to be electrified, which I don't think it is, for obvious reasons. And there's ropes and chains and there's dragons on the outside. Like I say, it's just a dressed up cage match, which is pretty cool. It's a good, cool concept for 1989, and a good draw for the pay-per-view, so to speak. So its first use of the cage, like a traditional tag team match inside a cage, and it's got a little bit of room on the outside so you can dump people out there and fight on the outside. So the first use of the cage comes after a bit of a breakdown in the match. It doesn't get going for a couple of minutes. The first use of the cage comes when Sting tries to shove Terry Funk through one of the openings in the cage. There's no door on this cage, by the way, and Sting sends Funk's head through the bars. Muta has not been seen in the match for a good 5 minutes as he gets the tag and comes in. There's not many rules in this match, but like I say, the tag teams are on the outside of the ring waiting for the tags. That does eventually break down, and it does become more Tornado Rules as the match goes on. Bruno Sammartino not really featured in this match too much, which is good. The referee shouldn't be influencing any of this match, which made it a bit more entertaining. Mild peril when Sting gets caught up in the cage and has his foot tied to the cage. A spot that we would see going down in history, being used several different times by several different wrestlers in different companies to hold their opponents to a cage, or hold them down for the last man standing matches and things like that. Pace quickens as the Great Muta is thrown into funk by Sting, who holds him up in the air. Military press throws him into Terry Funk, and Funk uses the distraction to their advantage to get back on top in this match. Funk and Sting on the outside, Flair and Muta on the inside, and Funk comes back outside to save the Great Muta, and they swap over. At this point, Terry Funk is trying to climb the cage. Now, it's been well documented by the colour commentators at this point that he cannot climb out of the cage, so I don't know what he's doing. Muta then follows. Sting and Flair pull them back off the cage, and the cage becomes a main thing in the match, which is something that they built up to, which is good. They don't go and use it straight away. They use it after a little while, and that's a good thing. Funk gets tied to the cage before Sting does, and Sting and Flair start beating up on Muta. Funk eventually gets out of the cage after hanging upside down by his leg, which can't be good for him. It's well documented that he is quite injury prone after being a hardcore wrestler before hardcore was cool. So there is a Scorpion Deathlock attempt. The first attempt at a submission. Is the towel going to come in? No. Terry Funk breaks that up and makes sure that there's going to be no winner at this point in the match. Climbing the cage, Muta and Funk tied up to the cage, which I've already mentioned, and Flair gets the figure four on the Great Muta. At this point, Sting swings into Funk using the rope, looking a bit like Tarzan. Funk trying to climb the cage, Sting going after him. Sting misses the second attempt, and that's where he gets his legs caught through the cage, and this is where Terry Funk takes advantage of that, tying his leg to the cage. At this point, Ollie Anderson comes around and tries to untie Sting so that he can go and help Flair. Flair is getting beaten up by Terry Funk and the Great Muta in a 2-on-1. And Muta again gets a submission, like an STF, a reverse STF on Ric Flair. At this point, Ollie Anderson finally manages to untangle Sting from the cage. Just as Great Muta and Terry Funk hit the spike pile driver on Flair, Sting then flies from the cage into the ring, a massive athletic spot off the cage onto Muta, and gains the advantage for his team. Funk then is put in a figure four leg lock as Muta is down on the outside after that move, and Sting continues to do a Scorpion Splash off the top rope 2 times before Hart gets in with his towel, and Ollie Anderson clocks in one, letting go of the towel, and Bruno Sammartino finding the towel and calling the match. So he didn't really throw it in, but he did. He let go of it. So your winners in this match are Ric Flair and Sting, and they win the first ever and the only Thunderdome match ever in the history of wrestling. And I'll tell you something, that's probably a good thing. But it obviously was the start of the whole cage thing with modern American professional wrestling, with the Hell in a Cell and all that kind of stuff. So we have a starting point, at least, with the idea of having extra space on the outside and the cage not being tight to the ring, which is good. I like that. We have the godfather of the Hell in a Cell right here in Halloween Havoc 1989. And so that is everything that happened in Halloween Havoc 1989. Well worth a watch. I skipped through quite a bit of it. We have a designated piss break match, which was the Cuban Assassin versus Wildfire Tommy, whatever his name was. That's how memorable it was. Designated piss break match. The rest of the match was pretty cool. There was a couple of okay ones. The final match was good for what it was. I think there was too much going on in it. but it was a good main event. You also noted was the Muta was the TV champion at this point, and Ric Flair was the world champion at this point. So you had two champions in that match. So yeah, overall the show was really good. I would give it a very solid C grade. The good outweighs the bad in this one, and being 1989 in the South, in Philadelphia, the crowd in Philadelphia usually does make the pay-per-view and forms its opinion around it. And the crowd picked a really good place to have this pay-per-view, to be fair. It was really, really cool. Very much worth a watch if you've got the network. If you haven't, obviously, you've just watched this video. If you like the video, you want us to do more classic pay-per-view reviews going forward, we're looking at Royal Rumbles and WrestleManias and things like that, then give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell to know when we upload a new video, leave us a comment down below, and I will see you next time on Cheap Shot Entertainment Classic Pay-Per-View Reviews. I've been Luke. Goodbye.